Today our topic is Dutch cycling infrastructure is amazing. Penn and Philadelphia could learn from it. We're delighted that you've come here to learn about it and talk about it with us. Following the presentation, we should have plenty of time for your questions. We thank you for coming out. And to see, no, excuse me, I'm at the, I'm at the outro. Let's see, we hope you enjoy the talk and the pizza. So let's get started. All right, so here we go. So this is today's journey. We are going to do this in 3 parts. I'll start, then Dhivya will take the middle, and I'll conclude. Opening with dreaming and drooling. That's what we think you all are here for. You want to dream and drool about Philadelphia becoming a bicycle city, just like cities in the Netherlands. Dhivya is going to pull back the curtain, and you will learn about the history of Dutch biking infrastructure, how it happened, and you will be surprised. And then I will ask the question, can it happen here? Perhaps. What if the University of Pennsylvania and University City put bicycle safety and bicycle convenience first? Here are a few pictures from our trip to the Netherlands in the spring, over spring break. We actually biked in the snow and the rain. Okay, you are wondering what's this on my t-shirt? It says fietser, and this is a fiets. It's a very puzzling word. Have you heard this word before? Say it with me, say fiets. Yeah, like feats of daring do and so on, right? So feats. And although it's a relatively young word, it's from around 1880. That's the first time we hear it or see it written somewhere. People have no idea where it comes from. So the etymology of this word is a mystery. This is a classic Dutch bike, ridden by men and women alike. It is perfect for riding in the Netherlands. Now, introduced you to fietsers, so you know how to say that. This sign is important. It means caution, be aware, let op, fietsers. So I want to hear this too. Let op, fietsers. Exactly, right? You all are fietsers too, and you want people to be careful and watch out for you. You want to bike on safe streets. This is a buck fiets. We're beginning to see these in the United States. You could call it a bucket bike. That's what a buck is, right? It is so useful. You can put all kinds of things in it, including your kids. This is a postfiets. This is a bike that the mail person uses to deliver packages and mail. All kinds of delivery people are on bikes in the city in order to deliver things. And this is a moeder met kinderen op de fiets. So a mother with children on the bike. This is with just 3 kids. I've seen with 4 kids on a bike. All right, this is remarkable, and you're thinking, that's impossible. How could anyone do that? And if you did this in the United States, the cops would come, right, and arrest you for being such a negligent mother who does not take care of her children and puts them at risk. So what follows from this is that you need a veilige fietsomgeving, right? You need a safe cycling environment. And I want to use this picture, this photograph, to start talking about what that means. This is a roundabout. We don't have too many of those, but this tells you so much about Dutch biking culture, right? So the first thing to notice is, here are the bikers, right? And bikers come first, mostly according to the law and sometimes simply because they insist on it. But at any rate, here they are, and you'll notice that all the way around, there's no point at which bikers are asked to stop while they're in this rotunda. And if they take a right turn, they do have to, let's see, they have to be careful about pedestrians. But you'll see later that pedestrians and bikers, they negotiate that with glances and motions. So it's not a matter of coming to a stop. You figure out how to do it, right? So that's the first thing to notice. Now this vehicle also can ride around, but if it wants to leave the circle, it does have to stop to make sure that there's no biker there. These are stop marks. Or no, actually, those are yield marks right there. The shark's teeth are yield marks. So it would have to yield to the biker, then to the pedestrians, and then could leave. So that already tells you a whole bunch. But you'll also notice this is a pinkish color, that we'll go into that a little bit later, and that there are these yield marks all over the place, but they concern the automobiles. Automobiles have to be very, very courteous and careful. Less courteous, but just careful, and you'll understand that in a little bit as well, why that's the case. Here is an intersection, an urban intersection, and you'll see here too that bikers who are traveling don't have to do any stopping. They just cruise right through. And an automobile, say an automobile were coming from here and it wanted to go there, would have to first take a little speed bump, yield here, yield here, yield here, yield here, and then could travel on, right? So an automobile has to be very aware and continually stop to make sure that there are no bikers coming their way. All right, so that also, it's a beautiful layout, the roundabout, this one as well. Okay, so this is a street, just a regular street in a Dutch city. It's in Utrecht. This one is not in the best shape, and it represents a pretty early stage of bike infrastructure in the Netherlands. You'll see that the cement that separates the bike path from the street or from the automobile path is not in the best shape. This is what we're striving for right now in Philadelphia, right? We want to have separate lanes, so we've got these little plastic poles that sort of separate, but not really, right? But that's a sign of progress. We're working on it, right? So this is what we sort of aspire to. But the residents of this street were not happy, and they were consulted, and look at what they said. So residents said, they were asked, what should get more space or less space? And they said, cycling should get a lot of space, right? 65 people said cyclists should get space, lots of space. There should be more space for walking, for parking bicycles. There should be green space and space to linger. So they're imagining their street and they're saying, that's what we want to see in the street. What don't we want to see in the street? Car traffic, car parking, buses even a little, freight traffic, etc. So they don't want to see cars in the street and they want to see lots of bikes. So these are important ratios, totally different from the way we think of our city streets, right? Imagine this could be, let's say it's a Philadelphia street. Okay, this is that same street after they went to work at it. And they meant with this project to bring it up to par, but also to meet the expectations and desires of the residents of that street. It became a bike street. It's pinkish red. That means it's a bike path in the first place. An automobile can get on there, but would not get on there in order to get through, only to deliver something, to go somewhere where there is a parking spot, and you are hard-pressed to find one there. Lots for bikes, but not for cars. And you can see, there you see also, I love this, this is called a damesfiets, right? It's a lady's bike. And you just sit up like this, as regal as you can imagine, and it is so comfortable and feels so wonderful as you bike through this street. There's lots more space for pedestrians as well. Think of the noise. There isn't any, or there's noise, but it's not automobile noise. So that is fantastic. Wouldn't you like a Philadelphia street to look like that? All right. This is what's called a fietsstraat. So that's the sign. And what's really important here is what it says right there. Auto te gast. The automobile is a guest in that street. That means that automobile has to be patient. The bike has every right to be in the middle of the street, and the automobile just has to wait, go slowly. That's the whole idea. That's how you make streets safe, right? Okay, let's see what else I got. All right, so when infrastructure is like that, as you can imagine, you've got an awful lot of bikes on the road. You have an awful lot of bikes, right? There are more bikes in the Netherlands than there are people, right? There are 1.6 3 bikes for every person. There's 17 million people in the Netherlands, give or take. Actually, give 17 and a half. There are somewhere around 23 million bikes in the Netherlands. Imagine that. That's fantastic. Okay, US, we're at 0.3, so we've got a little ways to go, but there are bikers, you know that. Philadelphia is becoming a biking city. So I think that that's a hopeful sign. Okay, so you've got mothers who take their kids on the bike and they're not wearing helmets. And you have 22 million bikes on the street. So that means that you need all kinds of additional infrastructure. You need places to park bikes, right? And recently they've been building these amazing parking garages in connection with their train stations. This is the newest one in Amsterdam. It is underwater. So a biker would come down here and then down into that hole there, and what they would see would be this, right? This biking garage has room for 13,000 bikes. 13,000 bikes. Same in Utrecht. These bikes that you see in the foreground, these are OV-fietsen. So these are rental bikes that you can get at the station. They have 1,250 rental bikes there. This is not a case where, you give your card and they write all this stuff down. You just use the same card that you use to get onto your public transportation. You go up to your bike and it's done, right? And then you walk off with your bike and then you return your bike, and that's all there is to it. It's utterly amazing. So you can go to virtually any city by train, any town by train, and you can get a rental bike there because you don't want to take your bike. And it costs, I think, €5 for the day. All right. They also have these wonderful bike tunnels, right? So you've got up here an intersection, and it would be inconvenient for a bicycle. It's not yet a roundabout, I guess. It would be inconvenient for a bicycle to have to stop at the light, right? So you want to let the bike go through. And so that's exactly what happened. There are loads and loads of these that allow bikers to move through quickly. They also have incredible bicycle bridges. These are usually shared by pedestrians and bikers alike, no cars, right? And this also has to do with making things really convenient and fast for bikers. And in this case, this is one near Amsterdam. At this point, bikers go off in this direction and pedestrians go off in that direction. It's a really incredible bridge. But there are many more sort of infrastructural monuments of this kind to be seen. Okay, so what is the Dutch secret, right? How is the Netherlands able to do this? And I have a suspicion that, and it's not just a suspicion, I've encountered it often enough. People say, you guys in the Netherlands, you can do that because you're a socialist country, right? So you have a coercive government who says, we're going to do this, and just sort of imposes this infrastructure on, unwilling people. No, not quite, but at any rate, it's because they have a really strong centralized government, and that's why it happens. How many of you think the Netherlands is a socialist country? I don't believe you if you don't put your hand up. Okay. All right. But so I'm assuming that I see a sea of hands, and so I'll say, yes, the Netherlands is a socialist country. And then I show you this. This is the results of the last election. And this shows that the governing coalition, which consists of many of the parties with the most votes, certainly in the case of the top two, center-right, centrist, center-right, liberal economically, that is to say, pro-market, anti-government, not wanting government regulations and so on, but wanting people to do it on a voluntary basis, etc. Not the greatest government, but they've been in power for a long time. Rutte is in his 4th term, and Christian. That's the government that's been in place for 4 terms for quite a long time, and they just keep on working on this bicycle infrastructure. So it isn't that. It isn't that. In fact, as I'm going to, hope show you now, please let's get this video started. This is a 1-minute video. Just watch it. It's your moment of zen in Amsterdam. This is an intersection. Try to figure out what's going on. See the rental bike? Okay, so I'm going to argue that what you're seeing there is exactly that kind of liberal ideology in action, right? These are autonomous people. These are free agents. They are negotiating with each other, not on the basis of courtesy, but just sort of calculating. They're calculating the risk to themselves. They're not worried about, oh, I could hurt that person, I could hurt that person. They want to make sure they don't hurt themselves, right? Therefore, they practice some caution, but they jump right in wherever there's an opportunity to move through. They know the rules of the road, they're confident on their bike, and there is no red light there, right? And everything just keeps on moving. Imagine in the US, right? You just sit there twiddling your thumbs, or no, of course you're texting, you're looking at your phone and waiting for that light to turn green. You run red lights because you hate waiting at red lights, etc. And here, no red lights. People figure this out. There's an incredible flow. Just think what this does for kids, right? How wonderful it is that they can be free agents, autonomous in their own cities, can calculate these things, learn to be confident about that. Others also with kids, you know, you do watch out, etc. So it's incredible. You see all the different kinds of vehicles, forms of transportation in that small concentrated place, and it just keeps on flowing. It's like a river. It's amazing. All right. Let's see. I think, oops, there we go. Now I'm going to turn over to Dhivya.
So after seeing all that, you're probably wondering, how did this happen? You know, was it magic? Has it always been like this? The short answer is no, and the long answer is we'll get into it. Okay. So I want you to think about what city this could possibly be. There's so many cars, it's quite crowded. This could be a US city for all we know in one of the many streets. But in fact, it's Amsterdam in the 1970s. So clearly, the Netherlands cities haven't always looked like the biking utopia that they are today. They faced the same problems with crowded city centers, roads filled with cars where, you know, cars were king. And this is really a product of the post-World War II era, where there's been a booming economy, and residents were financially capable of buying cars and automobiles. And urban policymakers believed that this was the future of travel and locomotion in cities. But to accommodate them, to accommodate these roads, there were whole neighborhoods that were destroyed to make way for automobile commuting, parking, and traffic. This is one such plan that was actually influenced by an American city planner. You can probably see some of the influence, the large highways, roads that are present. And this was, in fact, an example of the Dutch taking inspiration from US cities and American planners such as David Jokinen, who was hired by the Dutch to help modernize Amsterdam. And so they were demolishing these working class neighborhoods, building massive highways, and one of the staples of what we think Dutch cities look like, the canals, were actually being filled in with concrete to make way for these highways. And during this time, biking began to decrease by 6% each year. And the idea was that bikes and cyclists would disappear altogether to accommodate this growing car culture. And this is very much on the same track as many US cities at this same time. So they were very much on the path that we were on, that US cities were on and are still on today. But something happened and something changed. So, and it comes to this. As the number of cars rose in the Netherlands, so did the number of people who were killed by cars each year. By the 1970s, there were 3,000 people being killed by cars every year. Particularly, this becomes a children's issue. In 1971, there were 500 children who were killed by cars. One of these children was Simone Langenhoff. She was a 6-year-old girl, and she was struck and killed by a car on her way to school. Now, her father was a journalist and wrote a front-page article with the title, "Stop the Kindermood," or "Stop Murdering the Children." And this is what really started a protest movement that changed the future of Dutch locomotion in cities. Here are some additional pictures of what this protest movement looked like. Could we play this video?
All over the country, people joined forces to demand better cycling policies. A journalist who lost one of his 3 children in traffic while another was injured got a group of parents together. Their slogan, "Stop the Child Murder," was bold, but it resonated, not only in society, but also with decision makers, especially those who had been affected themselves. The Minister of Transport had lost a son in traffic. He was willing to experiment too.
So as you can see, this was really the start of what, these protest movements were the start of changing the Dutch system of locomotion. And so they started, figuring out what other ways could we incorporate cycling and also disincentivize cars in cities. So these are a series of Dutch protest posters in this period from Amsterdam in the 1980s. I'll let Simon tell us the Dutch version.
All right, so the first one is: de beste politie zit op zijn fietsie.
That's the best police officer is the one that's sitting on a bike.
Op de fiets was u er al.
And if you were on a bike, you'd already be here.
And then for the Cartesians in the crowd, ik denk, dus ik fiets.
This is probably my favorite. I think, therefore I bike. Okay. So through this protest movement and other such policies in the 70s, we can see this transition start to happen in cities where cars were king, they were the first and essentially we see that bikes start to take over, that this biking is promoted in cities. And I want to drive home the point that in fact, the Dutch were not really exceptional. This is a path that many American cities were on, and to accommodate automobiles. This wasn't government driven. There are people at the heart of this transition, and it's been going on ever since. It's still a very active process with promoting bikes and disincentivizing cars, and they're seeking new ways to improve the experience. So it's all about the space you have and how you use it.
Thank you, Dhivya. All right, so we're entering stage 3. What if Penn and University City prioritized bike safety and convenience? I think we should do this. Professors on bikes with their regalia. This is at the University of Utrecht. There were over 100 biking professors on this occasion, and they do that, I think, annually. All right, let's see. Okay, what are the benefits of cycling? I'll go through this quickly with you. These are just a few of the benefits. You will have thought of some of these, but some may surprise you. For every statement here, there is a study or more studies to back it up. So cycling leads to a longer and healthier life. It evokes positive feelings. This is my favorite. 2/3 of Dutch residents aged 18 and over associate cycling with joy. Imagine that. Can you confirm? Did you feel joy? Yeah, it is so empowering, and it is such a joyful experience to be on a bike and to sail through a city. Cycling is convenient, Increased bicycle use means lower greenhouse gas emissions. It also means cleaner air. Cycling is quiet. It's wonderful. You can hear things besides automobiles and buses and trucks. Cycling improves accessibility. A moving car takes up 28 times more space than a moving bicycle. A parked car takes up 10 times more space. So just imagine, take those cars out of there, put bikes, suddenly you've got so much more room. You can also, of course, get places much, much faster. Cycling is economical, it's democratic, and it's socially just. This is a document that I'd be happy to share with folks if they'd like to look into this further. All right, Penn does have some resources for bicyclists. You can find out about it on the website. I think there's a subsidy for bikes for professors and staff, and students can get a $25 reimbursement for a biking helmet. That's where it stops, right? There are a few bike racks, and that's about it. Okay, so Penn has started, but Penn still has a long way to go. So we want to help Penn with that. All right. Indigo is here. How many Indigo users are in the crowd? This is nice. Look at this, folks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I use it. Divya's used it, 8, 9. So that's a good start. Users, you know this works, right? Those racks are all over the place. It's the easiest thing in the world. And how much does it cost a month? $20 a month for unlimited rides. Wow. And listen, wouldn't it be great if Penn subsidized that for students? $10 a month, why not? Okay, so Indigo also does classes. It's a really wonderful organization, so look into it if you haven't. Then there is the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Anyone from the coalition here? Ah, good, okay, yeah, I joined too. This is a wonderful organization. They do so much good work also with kids. They're at Bartram's Garden, they're at schools and so on. They do free riding clinics to teach you how to ride. So this is an organization to take note of and to work with, to join. And Penn could work with this organization too, I think. All right, so here are a few ideas for what I'm calling the feetsification of Penn and University City. These were just jotted down in a hurry. When we come together, we will come up with many more. So what do? We have to organize students, staff, faculty, and the UC community. We have to coordinate, not work against, but work with Penn Real Estate and Facility Services, FRES, and with the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia and Indigo. Wouldn't it be great if students, faculty, staff, community sat down with Penn, with Indigo, with the coalition, and we started to work on designing an ideal plan, and we asked the good folks from the Weitzman School, who know lots about city planning and transportation and so on, to work with us to design an ideal plan and to develop goals, what we want to achieve for Penn and UC. Here are just a few, right? We want separate bike paths separated from car traffic, bike streets, parking. We want lots of incentives, not only to get on the bike, but to get rid of the cars, right? So incentives to reduce car ownership. That's important for climate reasons that we get rid of cars. You know that that's the case. Integrate bike riding, SEPTA, Lucy, Penn buses, car sharing, etc., because we need the space, right? Take the cars out of the picture, or take a chunk of them out of the picture. Those streets open up, then you can begin to realize the things that we're seeing in the Netherlands. Let's see, we need bike workshops and clinics. Coalition already does that. Indigo does that too. We could do more, and Penn needs to do this too, right? We need to work with them and get people on bikes so that they can experience the joy. Close streets periodically for bike festivals, at schools, we do it for Penn relays, for move in and move out, right? We can close streets just for a while so that people can enjoy bikes, kids can enjoy bike. You've got to sort of experience it before you can really get behind it. Dream big, dream safe, dream carbon free, and talk to me. I think we should get this on the agenda. I'm the chair of the subcommittee for community and something else, for the Committee on the Institutional Response to the Climate Emergency, which is known as CIRSE, but which is also a faculty senate committee. So we're working with the faculty senate. In fact, all the tri-chairs are always on this as well. So this is something that we could put on the agenda, and I really think we should. That was it. Oh, you have to do the outro. Sorry, we have an official outro, so hang on, hang on. Can you find it?
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, it's time for us to conclude. We really thank you for coming out. To see a replay of today's lecture or any other talk from our library of lectures, you can visit us on the Penn Arts and Sciences website or the Penn Arts and Sciences Vimeo library. Sadly, this is also our last Knowledge by the Slice of the academic year, but we hope to see you back in here this fall as we kick off the series again. Thanks again.
Does anyone have any questions? We got a bunch. Okay, very good.
Hi. All right. First off, thank you. It's really on us. Yeah, fantastic presentation. As a cyclist myself, I also appreciate the potential of these types of things. I'm interested, knowing that the Netherlands has so many bikes there, per person. Are most of those bikes rented, or are they, personally owned? And how would that apply to maybe here in Philadelphia? Which model should we focus on?
Yeah, great question. So, for the most part, privately owned, right? The people, if you're in your own city, in your own community, you want to be on your own bike. Bike sharing in the Netherlands probably wouldn't make sense, right? The Indigo model or the bike sharing model wouldn't make sense because just imagine how many, you just need hundreds of bikes at every station, and it just doesn't make sense. Now, why does that work? It works because there is parking, often covered parking for bicycles. When homes are designed, when housing units are designed or apartment complexes are designed, the architects are obliged to take into account parking space for bikes, right? Just like you have a garage for your car, maybe, and in the Netherlands, you have bike parking space in your home. It's designed as part of it. And since bikes take up so little space, it's not really a big deal. You think, oh, no, but we have a 2-car garage for crying out loud, right? So there's that. The rental bikes make sense at the train stations because people don't want, imagine everybody gets onto the train with their bike. That doesn't work. Right? So when you do take the train to go someplace for business or for pleasure or whatever, you don't take your bike along. You get off, you just, it's immediately there and you ride out. And then when you're done, you can bring it back. Let's see, was one other thing I wanted to say about bikes. Yes, where do tourists get bikes? Because you can't get one of these Ofe Pizza, unfortunately. I can't either. You need to have an address, you have credit card or bank account on file with them to be entrusted with a bike. So you have to go to a bike rental place, and there are loads of them. That's what we did. Yeah. We got bikes in the city without any problem. In one case where we went on a long bike ride along the Rhine River towards Germany, we had e-bikes, which was great.
Yes, I have 2 questions. First one, I didn't see any helmets. Yeah. They don't believe in that?
Yeah, right. So there is an argument to be made for helmets, and some people make it. Some people, very, very few people, wear helmets. I think there's something at stake here. There are not too many accidents, but there are some. We can't conceal that fact. But there are not too many. And there is a sense, it's almost like, I'm going to make a comparison with football, right? So if you make the equipment, stronger, more protective, then they hit harder, right? That seems to be the case. And so if you are sort of vulnerable, and this, which sounds terrible, but if you are sort of vulnerable in a culture such as this, I think it actually adds a measure. Strangely enough, it might even add a measure of safety. I'm a humanist. What do I know? But this is the impression that I have, and certainly there is a huge stake in this. It's like another comparison I could give. The Dutch hated wearing face masks during COVID. It was like it felt to them like a horrible infringement on their rights, which once again supports this idea. They're not a socialist country. They really aren't. And so, the government cannot oblige them to put on helmets.
And the second question is very close to this. What I've noticed, I love to bike ride, but I'm a leisurely bike rider.
Yeah.
And I am the onslaught of very aggressive
Yeah.
bike riders. It's worse than cars.
Yeah.
So what can be done about that
Yeah.
in terms of everybody riding at their own pace,
Yeah.
no one taking it, maybe
Yep.
too seriously?
Let Dhivya, you want to talk about your experience first? Because we don't want to, sugarcoat this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when we were preparing to go to the Netherlands, I think Simon told us, you haven't really been to the Netherlands as a tourist unless you've gotten cursed out by a Dutch bike rider, which has happened to many of us in the group. But I think it was a learning curve. I think you learn to stay to one side of the bike lane to allow those who are moving faster to go along, and you keep going at your own pace. But definitely agreed that it can be sometimes difficult to move around and transition when there are sometimes faster bikers around you. But I think there is a way to accommodate that. Yeah.
Right. So they do take tourists into account, because that's part of their environment. Tourists are there, so they know how to weave in and out, and they don't want tourists to trip up. But I understand exactly where your question is coming from, and and I think that's a really important question too. It's going to start with the kids, right? If we do this transition, it's not going to happen overnight. So we need to create spaces where kids feel safe on bikes, where kids are safe on bikes, so that they can develop that kind of second nature feeling about bicycles, because every Dutch person has that, and that's what they rely on. And so that, and we'll have to be patient with ourselves. But I think that just gives more weight to the argument that we have to create really safe streets and spaces where people who do not feel that confident about it, have enough room to move through safely. Vance, yes.
So thanks so much for the presentation. And I have a question about community outreach.
Yeah.
When I saw the first video and then many of the slides in the presentation, the thing that occurred to me or was apparent to me was the one black man who was walking, whereas the other people were not of color. And I think of the Netherlands as this really wonderful multicultural, multi-class, this wonderful society. And I'm asking if there are models for outreach in communities in the Netherlands that do reach people with a variety of income levels, but also migration backgrounds, ethnic, racial backgrounds. And I'm not assuming that the visual material you presented is representative.
That's correct.
But I'm curious about what this looks like and if there are ways of thinking about West Philadelphia or Philadelphia generally for community outreach.
Yeah, super question, Vance. So Rotterdam, Amsterdam, The Hague, Utrecht, these are cities with enormous what they call migrant populations, right? And migrant populations in the second and third and fourth generation, right? So the fact that you didn't see people of color on bikes, that was the function of a 1-minute video, presumably, because that's not the case. However, migrants who come, so people who come are new to the Netherlands, there is outreach to them. It is from the community government, right? So the municipal government, but as we learned, The municipal government has branch offices all throughout the city, and particularly in more vulnerable communities, lower income communities, because they want the services to be available there. And so these things would be organized, and it is also taught through the schools. So biking is something that is taught there, bike safety and all of that. So I would say it's there. There are models for outreach, especially for migrants coming in. Do they do a perfect job? Probably not. But it is really very important to work with specific communities and to do, intelligent and respectful outreach.
I just want to thank you for a great presentation and for that second bullet of yours that says coordinate with Penn Real Estate and Facilities. Back in the day when I was a student here, the high rises are bicycles that were actually covered and right outside the door and sort of lit. They renovated that, they put the bicycles out in the snow and the rain, it's not lit. And now as faculty in the community, I'm keeping my bicycles or our community bicycles from being stolen, parts taken, etc., is a large problem as well. So again, I know they have bicycle identification. All of that information just needs to be stressed and those services increased and that coordination and communication increased. So thank you so much for pointing that.
Yeah, no, thank you for remembering that. That's really important to realize. So what I'm imagining is that, the parking garages that Penn owns, if we can, if let's say 10% of those cars were not in there and we took that space and made it available for bikes and for other bike-related things like having air for tires and other things like that, that would be one thing. And then, of course, the rest of that floor, because that should be the ground floor, would be for e-cars so that they could recharge, right? So, conversations to be had with Penn, but we have to formulate this request or demand or whatever it is, this idea, and present it to them and work with them. I love working with the folks in Fres. I've worked with Nina in Penn Sustainability all the time, and before her with Dan, and have gotten to know Anne, Papa George, and others there. They're really wonderful people, and they do want us to move in a carbon-free, carbon-neutral direction. But we need to give them ideas and then work with them.
Thank you both for the amazing presentation. I just wanted to note about Indigo. The Graduate and Professional Student Association actually offers a 1-month discount on the pass. So if anyone wants to take that up, you can. You get it for $10.
What organization?
It's called GAPSA for Graduate and
GAPSA.
Professional
That's
Students.
really good to hear.
Yes.
That's for graduate students?
A graduate and professional student. So I tried out Indigo for the first time with like $10 off on that. Anyway, so I had a question about, you said making the streets safe for bikers would encourage them to get on the streets, and that I assume is about getting cars off the streets so they can ride freely. But more so about Philly, because when I started biking here, I realized a lot of my friends were hesitant because of the crime around the city. Not necessarily cars crashing into them, but crime in certain parts of the city as well. And biking to those parts seems a little dangerous to them. So I feel like, do you think encouraging bikers to get on streets is going to reduce that, or do you think you need to reduce the crime first in order to get the bikers on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. In all of the, so we're dialectical thinkers in addition to being Cartesians, right? So it's a back and forth, right? You feel a little safer, more bikes feel, that means it gets safer, more bikes, et cetera. So it goes back and forth like that, and so you can grow it. I think it does. I hesitate a little bit. I mean, petrification is going on. And there are issues with that. The encampment and the UC protests, confronted the administration with that and made us highly aware of it. And so I don't want to, play that down at all. But, within that space of petrification, these streets are, it seems like idiotic. You petrify, why would you not also feetsify at the same time, right? But it's not yet, but the model there is wrong, right? It should be a model that involves community dialogue, working together, negotiating, working these things out. And that's something, I'm sure that fossil-free Penn would love to work towards creating a safer biking environment for students and for West Philly residents. So I guess that's what I would say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious culturally, what sort of communication did you see there? I mean, obviously in our country, it's, 16 is your license and that equates freedom and so what sort of culturally there is
Yeah, I can take this. So it was really interesting because I found out that I had family living outside of Amsterdam on this trip, and I got the chance to go visit. And they have 2 kids. One is 11, one is 5, and the older one is currently in school. She's getting ready for her biking practical exam. She had just taken the theoretical exam, and so now she was going to get on a bike and be examined, and she's going to get a certificate for it. I thought that was really cool to get that in schools and for kids at a young age to get them comfortable to the biking culture. I think that's a huge part of it. And I think the second thing that I was talking to my uncle about was actually the fact that he was surprised, not surprised when I told him I didn't have my license yet. He was like, yeah, that's completely normal, which is not exactly normal for the States. But over there, he was saying that a lot of people don't actually get licensed to drive cars or buy cars until they're in their mid to late 20s because of there's like a fee to get your licensure, and then obviously to buy a car that are quite expensive. So the barriers are a little higher to doing that. And obviously biking is much easier, much more accessible in terms of cost. And so a lot of people tend to do that. And I think that's one thing that definitely drives culture, both in schools and then also most people not, being able to afford to get their license when they're young and still under their parents' roof. So, yeah.
So you wind up with kids being autonomous much earlier than 16, right? And that's because of the biking and the fact that they're confident on bikes and just do it all the time. It's also because there is an incredible public transportation network, which they also learn to make use of. Okay, this was such a pleasure. Great to have you here. And yeah, so let up, pizzas.